Well, hey there, YouTube. I hope this video finds you doing well out there. I'm Jack, and this is Raw Tropical Living, and I appreciate you tuning into the channel today. We're going to get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about how to deal with cravings on a raw vegan diet. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go down and hit the subscribe button now, and then click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. Cravings seem to be the number one problem that plague people, or I don't know if it's the number one problem, but it is definitely a problem you hear people talk about all the time. I still have cravings for this, or I have cravings for that, or, just cravings, cravings, cravings. And this is all, everything I do here is just my personal opinion, but to me, I think skipping meals and going too long without food is probably the number one reason that people even experience cravings in the first place. I've always advocated getting out ahead of your cravings, or basically just keeping yourself well fed all the time. I mean, if you're fed all the time, we don't. I mean, some people will argue just to be contrarian, but generally, if you're not hungry, you don't have cravings. I mean, I do understand that people, myself included, in the past have you deal with a specific craving, like I want this particular thing, but generally, it's just because you're unsatisfied. And then a lot of it is simply just emotional eating. So sometimes you have to differentiate between, do I really need to eat, or am I really just eating for my emotions? But yeah, if you'll just getting out ahead of problems in general is one of the biggest ways to keep problems from getting big, or if they have, or just to avoid them altogether. It's very, if you're, and also too, I would say, just in addition to skipping meals or going too long without food, another part of that is not feeding yourself enough food, not eating enough food when you eat. I was watching somebody's video yesterday, and it was something like they were living on 1,500 calories. When you're living on 1,500 calories, unless you're a child, you're just hanging on. You're white knuckling it. You're like seeing, okay, let me see if I. It's like the mentality I remember when I used to do diets when I was younger. You eat something and you don't eat near enough, because most diets are about restricting, and then within 30 minutes, all you're doing is looking at your watch, thinking, okay, what time do I get to eat again? And that's just it's not going to last long term. I mean, people can do diets, or people can get on health kicks, and most anybody with just a little bit of willpower can do anything for a short period of time. But we're talking about sustaining here. So you have to eat. You have to eat an adequate amount of food for your body. I'm eating all the time, all day, every day. As I was preparing for this, I'm trying to think what cravings I have anymore. I don't have any specific cravings. Sometime, if I've been eating tons and tons and tons of fruit and I haven't had anything savory in a couple of days, I will get a general. I don't know if I would even call that a craving, because I just end up coming up with something that's good to satisfy a more savory way of eating. But I just simply, I keep myself well fed all the time, and that keeps me out of problems. And that's why people will go back and forth, and who's to say I'm right either? That's why I'm not about waiting till you're hungry to eat. I kind of have more. I don't have a schedule that I eat on, but I have a certain amount of feedings that I do during the day. I know certain people hate that word feedings. It's not my favorite word either, but I just have a certain structure of things that I'm going to get into my day every day, and it's almost like, after I'm going to get these things into my diet that I know my body needs on a daily basis. And after I get those things into my body, there's nothing, I don't have those cravings, or I don't feel the need to eat anything outside of that. So you can even play little head games with yourself. In other words, like, if you have problems with cravings, make a plan for yourself. This is what I eat during the day, or these are the things that I'm going to eat during the day. Plan out what you need to get. Think of it as like this list of the nutrition that I need. And you go down that list, and allow yourself in your head, like, say, okay, and if after this I'm still hungry, maybe I'll give myself a treat. And there's nothing wrong with having treats from time to time, or depending on the type of treat and how much of the treat and how often. You could have make a treat for yourself every day, but just know in your head what you're doing. Identify these things, because knowledge is power. To know whether you're really hungry, or just to know if you're, bored, or you're trying to fill some emotional need with your food. So that's the first thing, is to establish that. Second thing is, if you have specific cravings, like if there's a certain food or a certain thing that you just absolutely crazy about, this may not be such cheery news. You just got to keep it out of your body. You got to not eat it. You got to not put it into your system. You can use something to substitute for that. If it's something that's salty or more savory, you've come up with something that's more a salty or savory alternative to that. Sweets, like I say, if you're eating fruit, but I do realize this, when people are new to this lifestyle, fruit is not necessarily as sweet to them as it becomes to us, because, you've eaten so much. You've taken in so much chemical, so much processed stuff, so many trick flavors on a standard American diet, that you kind of have to detox your tongue a little bit. Like for me, sitting down eating mangoes is straight up dessert. It's sugar. It's the good kind of sugar. I love it. And I do remember this when I was living in Costa Rica, and I always thought it was so odd. But it is what it is, because people just aren't, they, like I say, they just don't process things the same. But they would make a fruit smoothie and they would put scoops of sugar in that. So maybe you do have to kind of trick your taste buds a little bit until you get a little bit better. So there's all kind of little healthy treats you can make for yourself. In the sweetness, there's one that I like. I haven't had this in ages. I might actually have one or two this week. And I don't recommend a lot of them, because you're mixing a little bit of fruit with fat, and you don't want to get things out of hand. But a great little natural candy bar I find is to take a nice big fat medjool date, and get yourself a little almond butter, just a little dollop of it. It's not even hardly a traceable amount, and you just put a little almond butter on that date, and that combination of that little bit of creaminess and fat with that sugar, that it's like a candy bar. But if you keep putting the things in your mouth, going into your digestive system, like like candies or potato chips, or even if you're if you're new to this lifestyle and you tend to fall off it completely, and even fall off back into animal products, you've just got to figure out a way to keep it. The longer you keep it out of your system, the less your body's going to cry for it. It's the same as it is with cigarettes, with booze, with anything that the body can can get into a habit of. I don't necessarily say addictive, because we can have habits without actually having an addiction, and food addiction is a whole different avenue, so I don't try to get into that. In fact, I always wonder, people talk about food addiction. If you really, really, really have tried everything else, and you're absolutely certain you have a food addiction, well, then you have to go get professional help, just like anybody else would. It seems like nobody's out there getting that. Everybody talks about food addictions. Everybody talks about how and sometimes I kind of laugh at them a little bit, but people, no, Jack, they're real. Well, if they are so real, and I do believe they are, get some professional help. If you are really in an addiction that you can't get out of, what would you tell somebody if they were a crackhead? What would you tell a drunk? What would you tell somebody, with cigarettes? Some people people go to hypnotists, people go to all kind of things for that. But you've got to keep those substances out of your body, because our gut microbiome, we have bacteria down there, and they become used to different things. And in the beginning, if our gut bacteria, if you've been eating a lot of garbage from a standard American diet, a lot of processed foods, a lot of chemicals, a lot of processed sugars, that's what the bacteria wants to be fed in your gut. So even though that's not good stuff, that's what your gut's going to be calling for a while, until you change that microbiome in your belly. So it's just a matter of putting the good stuff in, eating enough, and just do it. Like I say, yourself. I can't tell you every trick that you need to do. That's one of the biggest things in life, is knowing yourself. You can take information from me, other people, And a lot of it is good information, but it may not be exactly specific how you do things, how you process things. So you kind of have to personalize that for yourself. But generally, it's a matter of eating. This is a lifestyle of abundance. This is not a diet. This is not something you should be restricting yourself on. Like I say, from the day I'm almost 10 years, getting closer and closer, just a few months away. But for 10 years, I've never had to be hungry. In the beginning, I mean, yes, I had more cravings, and I did a lot of these tricks to figure them out. I try to think of like plant-based things that I had cravings for. I don't want to say I had really cravings for nuts. The nut thing kind of just went away naturally. So, eat enough food. Have yourself a few little treats that are a good alternative to the bad stuff you do. Have salty alternatives, have sweet alternatives, have savory alternatives. But just depending on how badly you deal with cravings. And once again, I've said this many a time. It's not fair. Some people, I just started eating fruit, and I started eating greens, and I started eating this. Didn't do it perfectly, but I love this kind of food. I wasn't really plagued with a lot of these things I hear people from. So I didn't have to do some of the things that I recommend doing. I didn't have to keep a food journal. I didn't have to do all these little tips and tricks. I ate it. But don't if you have to do that, because you will get through. You will break through those cravings if you do the right thing long enough, and then you'll be on the other side, and then you'll be like, woof, glad that's over. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you here again in a couple of days. Peace.